Moving on, we have our review of Suikoden II.
That's right, Suikoden 2.
Rhymed.
Man.
So,
it's been a long time.
Mark, why don't you give us a quick rundown of what the story is?
All right, I will. The story starts with you, the player, who has... Don't block my screen.
He broke down real quick, didn't he?
It stars you, the player, as unnamed
You're supposed
hero.
to be the Suikoden guy.
Unnamed hero, who you give him a name. In the novelization and the drama CD, it's Ryu.
Yep.
So that's what I named him, obviously.
I went canon as well.
I go canon. Don't look at me. Don't look at me when I look at the screen.
I believe I did the whole Mass
So
Effect...
you and your best friend Jowie...
Let me stop you right there. I believe I did the whole entire Mass Effect
It's going to
trilogy
derail...
without a...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I'm aware.
Yeah, but my brain is broken.
I think wrong.
I'm
Brad.
sorry, Mark. Continue, please.
So you and your best friend Jowie, you've been friends since childhood.
I believe it's
have
Joey.
joined. Is it Joey? You saw a YouTube video that said it was Joey.
Yeah, they say Joey.
Well, we'll find out soon. So I'm going to say Jowie because it's Jowy.
Joey.
I guess if like Bowie, but with a J instead of a B.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, sorry, I'm derailing.
Ryu and Bowie are... Can I actually get to the actual description?
He said Bowie.
Ryu and Bowie are in the Unicorn Brigade of the Highland Empire. It's actually a youth army brigade that's camping out in the mountains. A peace treaty has just been signed between Highland and the city-state of Jouston. Is it Jouston or Joston?
Jostin.
Jowston.
Yeah, Jostin.
You and your friend go for a walk. Your Commander Roud tells you, just take
I
it
believe
easy.
it's Road.
Is it Roud? Is it Road? Is it Road?
No.
Tells you to take it easy. He's like, take it easy, whatever. He tells all the other people are like not taking it serious because the commanders just told them not to. So you go to bed and you wake up to the sound of fire and fighting, and you realize that your camp is being attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And your commander tells you to run through the forest to get away from it. You realize, running down the forest path, that that's the only way there. So clearly it's an ambush, and they're coming from that direction, and that's how you're going to die. So you go back to the camp, and then you see your commander talking to...
Can I stop you there? In my game, I completely went the wrong way, and they actually mentioned that I didn't go down the path, the forest path.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're supposed to go right. I immediately went left up to the mountains, and they actually mentioned that. They were like, hey, do you not follow directions? But it ended up working out. So I thought that was a pretty cool little...
Nice.
But I completely did not, and I did that. Did not do it not on purpose. I hung a left when I should have hung a right.
So apparently you don't follow directions.
No,
is what
apparently
you're
not.
saying.
So you come back to the camp, and spoilers, but it's only spoilers for the first 10 minutes of the game, so it doesn't count. Spoilers, your commander, or I think it's a captain actually, your captain is in cahoots with the Prince Luca Blight of Highland. And they have staged a massacre and made it look like the city-states of Joston did it, so that they can use that as a pretense for war. Luckily, you catch them doing that, and you run up to this cliffside, and you jump off into a river to escape.
You and Joey.
You and Joey, whatever, Bowie. Wash down the river. You agree beforehand, we're going to meet back here if we get separated. And you wash down the river, you get separated, you get saved by these mercenaries. Eventually, Bowie,
Just say Joey.
all right, comes to save you, and you go back to your hometown and find out you've been framed as spies. So now, not only has your brigade been massacred by the city-states, but everyone thinks that you were involved in it, and that you almost get hung, and the mercenaries come back and save you, and thus starts the epic adventure that is Suikoden.
2.
Suikoden 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That about sums it up.
Is that enough of the plot?
I think so.
If I go further, then I get into...
No, I mean, because
Cool
it branches
spoilers.
off into a bunch of different directions, and there's,
There's a lot of
108 freaking characters.
There's a lot of
Yep.
cameos. A lot of cameos.
Yes.
So it's well, let's hop into some pros. I'll start. It's probably been the longest for me since I've beaten the game. I played it recently to give myself a quick refresher, but I didn't play it all the way through. Improvement over the first.
Definitely.
I mean, the inventory system is better. The graphics and the look of the game
They look the same.
are very, very similar. Yeah, they look the same. But you can it feels like a more mature version
Yeah.
almost of the first one.
Definitely all of the portraits are much higher quality. Some of the portraits in the first game looked like they're hand-drawn almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. The box art's better.
Definitely.
It makes more sense. I think the characters I really like. I don't know. I find the characters in 2 to be a little bit more memorable. I think it's because a lot of them get a little more screen time rather than just one sentence and then they go to your castle.
It's a 20-hour game versus like a 40-hour game.
Right.
So,
and then I also really like how, like in the first one, it forces you a lot of times to, like, you can have 6 people in your party, which is great, but it's like, okay, you have to take these 5. All right, pick your 6th, and you have 100 people to choose from.
It forces you,
and it's like, what? I want to pick the 6 people that I want to use.
right?
I don't want to pick one guy and be forced to use the rest of them. Especially with that many characters, you really need choice. 2, I mean, there's still parts where you're forced to use 2 or 3, but that's still way better than 5 or 6.
right.
I did like that it didn't put you in situations where you had long range people in the front and short range. Like in the first game, there were those battles where you were like,
yeah,
I didn't get
useless.
I didn't get to move my. I remember the first game.
You need to change the formation.
Like I didn't get a chance to move them. What's going on? Like so that was I liked that.
Right. Yeah, that was always fun. Right before a boss battle,
you had a guy in the front with long range, and you're like,
right. And then
it is a really big deal that they do that because of the way the Unity system works.
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. And then the battles, the big battles. Now, granted, it's still pretty smallish and it still feels a little bit goofy, but I took the ones in this one a little bit more seriously, just because of the layout and it's a little bit more strategic, especially towards the end of the game. Like I know Brian had some complaints at the beginning, saying like I don't even control half my guys.
Yeah,
I'm just doing one little thing and he's telling me what to do, so it's not really. But I mean, you saw it was a little different at the end.
It's more like I said. I even admitted that it's way more strategic than the rock paper scissors version of the first game.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just a lot of improvements. And the first one was already a solid game, so that just made this one, so much better. So, pros, you guys?
Just to reiterate on what you just said, I thought like everything that could possibly be improved upon was, and the things that were already solid were just as solid as they were in the first game. I thought the city layouts were a lot more interesting in the second game. It wasn't as grid-like and bland as in Suikoden 1.
Yeah, 2's story. 1 was very basic. Thinking back, there aren't any like really big. There are scenes, and there are 2 scenes in Suikoden 2 that will actually probably stick with me throughout. Like, you know how in games there's those games you have the scenes you remember. There were 2 of them in Suikoden 2. I can't remember any from 1. Maybe the very last scene in 1, but 2 had 2 stand out. Like, whoa, those were really powerful, well written scees.
Yeah.
That were like extremely like gratifying. So
You don't remember when somebody dies in the first one?
it was kind of.
But you remember it.
I do, but it's not like it wasn't done.
It didn't
well.
stick out like
it
the
didn't
second
stick
one.
out.
Right. It was kind of dry.
Yes, it was
I
like
agree.
very like here you go. Here's my rune. I'm dead.
I'm saving you to the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I don't mean that. I mean the other one. You guys are talking about 2 completely different ones.
Yeah, I'm talking about the one you're talking about.
No.
No?
You're talking about the one at the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm talking about the one towards the end,
Refresh
which
me.
is the one that
I don't
he's
want to
thinking of.
say.
I don't want to say
yeah,
it.
it's spoilery.
Yeah. So I guess you don't remember it. Okay, never
I
mind
don't.
then.
Yeah.
So, case in point.
After the show, we'll remind you.
Okay.
The art, beyond just having better art, there's a lot more custom animations, so to speak. Like, it's not just characters standing there. Nanami, when you first meet her, runs up to you and like pushes you into the wall behind you and leaves an indentation of you in it. When you do your unite attack with her, sometimes she'll just sit down and like have a picnic while you're attacking the enemy. Stuff like those little details that are blended in throughout the game make it feel so much more fully fleshed out.
I feel like by the time I get done with the series, because here's a pro, I'm going to lead into this. I feel like by the time I'm done with the series, I will maybe be more accepting of the 108, because in this game, though I still think there were way too many characters to keep the narrative focused, they did a lot better job, and you said it, of instead of just saying, I'm an old fruit farmer, I'll join your army, boom, and then it just does that little like, ding, and then it goes to your castle. They had a lot more characters that had a lot more fleshed out stories.
Yep.
In this game. In the first one, it was literally just they say a sentence, they go to your castle,
and even the really basic ones,
yes.
like what is his? I can't remember his name, but you get him really early on. He's just passed out in an alley, and he says he's hungry, and then you go and buy him food, and he doesn't have the money to pay for the bill, and you pay for it, and he joins your army. And then whenever you let him leave your party, he says, "I'll go back to the base. They have fresh food there." So.
Yeah.
Or the town that's being attacked by bandits that only attack groups of women. And so you have to have women in your party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you go there and they attack you, and then the other one joins you because of that, because she sees like, oh my gosh, they're strong women here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to join this army.
So while were still way too many characters that were just basically throwaway.
Nah.
So because there were still too many characters that were throwaway, I can't quite come on board with the 108. But 2 did improve upon it a lot. There were a lot more that were worthwhile, is what I'm trying to say. So that's a pro. They took one's basic.
I don't feel like there's too many characters. Obviously,
There's too many. There are too many throwaway.
The way
characters.
I see it is, any army is not just going to be made up of the biggest, baddest heroes. There's going to be the people in the background, the support people who aren't as important, and every character that you recruit in this game can be put into your army and give you a certain ability in battle, or modify your stats in battle. And most of them that don't go into your party for normal battles contribute something else. Like they let you upgrade your weapon better. They let you
But
trade.
you didn't use all of them.
Trading post.
You didn't use all 108. You used
But you
maybe
could
20
if you wanted to.
Yeah, but
But think about what we said about Mass Effect, and I'm not saying that Mass Effect is because I know the characters are more fleshed out in there because there's less of them, and it's able to devote that time to it. But think about what Mark said when he was like, I wasn't really attached to this person or this person because I never used them at all. Same situation.
Yeah.
You go back, play it again, you use those other characters, you'll get to it. So, you do a couple of playthroughs, you will get to meet all of these people, have them in your party, see what differences they bring to the table.
to devote that many players, I feel like
No, you don't have
to take the
right.
Mass Effect analogy a step further. Even if I don't use Garrus at all in my game, just the fact that he's in my engine room or my weapon room or whatever, making his calculations, calibrations.
Just having them in your party doesn't flesh them out. It just means they're in your party. Like a lot of them didn't.
It's not about. I'm not saying
a lot of them didn't have very fleshed out stories. So I don't really know who are they. Like, and that's what I'm saying. With Suikoden II, there were.
But a general
way
doesn't know
more.
everyone below him.
But I don't.
I'm saying that the feeling of having all these people under you, the feeling of uniting all these people for a common cause, even if you don't know every one of them and every detail about them.
Okay, so let me have 20 to 30 characters that I know really well, and then let me go to city-states or a town and just recruit the town. Like, you know what I mean? I don't need to know every single soldier. I want to know the important ones to the story, and then to move on. Like, that's kind of my philosophy on it.
I don't mind.
But 2 actually did a way better job of like, oh, this person actually has some backstory to it. There's like you said, the guy in the alley,
barely any backstory, but so much flavor in that character.
They did better in 1 where it's just you just talk to a guy and they join your army.
Anybody have any pros before we move on to cons?
One more pro. The music by Miki Higashino is excellent. The end.
It is, absolutely. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, cons. I think we know Brian's con. Too many characters.
Just still too many to focus the narrative, to condense it to something that's more like when you like. I didn't collect all of them, not even close. I maybe had 70 by the end, and I still felt like I was going out of my way to collect characters that I could just go through the story. Like, I'm trying to get to the end. It's like you have this end. You see the end of the maze, right? But you intentionally go off path. And I don't like that feeling of like,
maybe
there's a serious, it's like, oh, there's a serious, threat, but let me go down here and
see. I never felt that way.
I
never felt like, okay, I'm not attached to every character in the game.
Right.
I'd be lying if I said I was.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even tell you all the names of all the characters. But going and recruiting a character, even a bland character, still feels awesome. It feels like you're building your army and you're getting closer to defeating Highland.
That's how I feel. Yeah, absolutely.
I hear you.
Because every single person you get adds somebody else that's going to be in your castle waiting to greet you when you get home.
Yep.
It does fill out your castle, which is a cool aspect to it, but I just thought it muddied down the narrative, which was a very good narrative. I just thought it was like, it would kind of felt disjointed at times. Way less than in 1. Like, this one fleshed it out way better. It felt way more connected than in 1, but there were still those oddball side characters that you were kind of like, well, okay. But honestly, a huge improvement. But that's still they, too many. Just bring it down a little bit. That's just my opinion. I know that it's an unpopular one, but just the way I felt. Honestly,
gotcha.
one of the very few cons in the game, to be honest.
If I had one con, and I'm not saying it's a perfect game, because there are games that I do like better. This isn't really even a con for me necessarily, but I think it could be for some people because I have heard other people complain about it. The translation is not very good, and it's like a lot of times with games that have bad translations, I sometimes can't even tell because I don't look that deep into what they're saying. Like if it's a goofy sentence like "this guy are sick," obviously I'll be like, "What?"
Yeah.
But like this game, like the main character's best friend, Jowie, his name is spelled like 3 different ways throughout the game.
It is.
And it's just like,
come on.
wait, is that the same guy? What? And it really doesn't bother me that much. And honestly, from a gameplay standpoint, it won't bother you really. But for people who do get kind of irked by translations and stuff, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's definitely not, going to win any awards anytime soon.
I was actually amused by it.
Yeah.
But some people could be bothered by it. That's definitely true.
Yeah.
I will give you guys that the big battles, the big war battles, are, while massively improved, they're still a little bit shallow.
It's like and that was my only problem with it. It's like it wanted to throw a little strategy RPG element into it, but it was so watered down that it was like.
I think they needed a way to make you feel the struggle of those
Right.
big battles, and they didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree.
Having that element.
I'm going to give it a pass based on the limitations of the hardware at the time. If they come out with a game now and it's super cinematic, and all of a sudden, beep boop boop, you're on the screen. Yeah, I'm going to get mad at you for it.
I think
but
the way 3 did it was better. I thought it was a huge step up. If
Really?
I remember correctly, like you're moving your guys around the same kind of way, but every time they get into a like combat,
Cinematic.
you actually go into a regular battle,
and that's what I like.
with squads and stuff.
That is exactly what I would wish for too. But I like I said, hardware limitations, because just seeing a little horse blow, a little fire, and then seeing a sword go into it's like.
Like that big old battle with the Grasslands people.
Yeah, dude.
Oh man,
That's a pretty good one.
3 is so.
There's a good glitch in there
Love
where
it.
you can power level your character.
I don't want glitches, Mark.
But that was really my last con. Other than the disjointed narrative, was the battles. Just they seemed a little.
Sure.
But that, I mean, seriously, it's a great game. Other than that,
Okay. Anybody else? Any other cons?
I'm not entirely unbiased, but I don't have any more. I don't have any more cons.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it goes without saying we recommend it, right?
I recommend it highly. It has an excellent story that goes beyond just the entire world's going to blow up if you don't stop this guy.
Now, here's the question, though. Let's say it never comes out on PSN. Do you still recommend paying for it?
I recommend mugging someone. No, I'm just kidding. If you can borrow it from someone, do it immediately. But I don't know,
agree.
$120 or more.
it's
Yeah.
not worth that price tag.
If you're
to
a
me.
collector, you've probably already got it.
Well, hey, if you have the money to buy it, play it, and then sell it for like basically the same amount that you
Yeah.
bought it for,
Yeah.
then definitely do it.
It is a, as weird as this sounds, I think it's a great piece of gaming history that never got the appreciation that it deserved.
Yeah.
Like, it took so many steps forward with what it did. And we're going to get into that here in a little bit. But there's a lot of points in it. Like, if you like Game of Thrones, we've said it before, and this is I believe IGN is where I heard one of the guys describe it. He was like, this is Game of Thrones, the video game.
Definitely.
So it's just very, very... It's a lot more mature than the first one, and it's just such a moving story. And even the little side stories are interesting and funny and just an emotional roller coaster the whole way through. So, Brian, do you recommend it as the newcomer?
I recommend it. $20. It's worth $20, so I would pay $20 for it.
If it came out on PSN, I would imagine it'll probably be like 10.
Exactly.
Which
So
would be
it's
more than
definitely
worth
a recommendation if it's readily accessible. It is definitely, if you're not already a Suikoden fan, it is absolutely not worth paying the money for it. Not at all.
Agreed.
Because it's not. I mean, it'd be a shot in the dark whether or not you liked it. However, if it's reasonable, or like Mark said, you can borrow it from somebody, 100%. It's worth playing through or giving it a try.
Cool. Okay, with that, we are going to continue our discussion of the Suikoden series, not just 2. We actually are bringing Ryan back. If you'll remember, he is one of the admins over at the Suikoden Revival Movement. He was on, I believe, episode 19 with us, and I went back and I looked at the numbers, and that is still our most downloaded episode to date. So obviously people like him. And I know Mark and I had an absolute amazing time talking to him.
It was great.
Even afterwards, we were just like, wow. Like, this guy...
He has real insights into
Absolutely.
the game series.
And he's got... I've been talking to him for a couple of weeks now and kind of going over what we're going to talk about here. And I'm just... Man, I'm so excited to hear what he has to say today. And we will go from there. So, without any further ado, let's get Ryan on the horn. And here we go. All right, and we are back with Ryan from the Suikoden Revival Movement.
Howdy, Ryan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back. It's been a while, but I'm glad to be here.
It has been a while. Episode 19, was it?
Episode 19. So,
Man.
It's been a while, but Suikoden is my favorite topic in the world, and I'm always looking to talk about it endlessly with anyone. So thanks for having me back.
We're kind of using you a little bit just because I mentioned this a little bit ago, but I ran the numbers, and apparently episode 19 is still our most downloaded episode.
Yeah.
So
And
we just brought you back because we're trying to get more friends. That's all.
we attribute it to I think you, Ryan, and then obviously the absence of me in that
Well,
episode.
we also brought him back.
Yes.
We brought him back also to gang up on Brian.
Yeah,
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're using you guys, too, because we always need content for the Suikoden Revival movement to keep people engaged and to see what's going on. So.
Well, you could certainly do better than us. But hey, we appreciate it, definitely.
You guys cannot hold a candle to Yoshitaka Murayama, I'm afraid.
No.
But
we will not try.
We'll take what we can get.
There you go. Absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, like you said, it has been a while. What's been going on with you? What's been going on with the SRM since?
Well, yeah, so not long after we last talked, we were able to publish our Yoshitaka Murayama interview on the SRM. So if you haven't seen that, please do go and check it out. Since then, we've kind of gone into a more dormant state, trying to figure out what we want to see for 2015 and setting up some goals and reevaluating some things as we all kind of dealt with things in our personal lives. For example, I had to move quite suddenly in September. So that's been going on. But we're going to turn things around here. In December, we do have a movement planned, mostly for the PSN and also for Sony. And then in January, we're going to pick things up again with Operation Blinking Mirror 2, which is the physical letter writing campaign to Konami and Konami Japan. So we have those things on the table, and also probably another Twitter campaign in January. As we reach 2015, we're going to really start picking things up again. So,
see, that's what I think is funny is that you say there's like, we're kind of going a little bit dormant, but you just named like 3 things you're going to be doing, and then you said January, which is the very beginning of the year. So it's like, to me that sounds like a lot of stuff. That's cool to know that you guys are still staying busy even when you think you're not.
Well, we do take some professional pride in what we do here. Sometimes, as much as we like to joke around, Suikoden is a serious topic with us, and we very much love it. And this is a passion project, so you can imagine that we're always ready to keep the fight going, no matter what happens. So,
well, and that's definitely a fight worth fighting for.
Definitely,
or a cause worth fighting for.
Yes.
I don't know why I said it like that. Yeah, you know what I mean. But we're totally excited to see what you guys do, and we will absolutely do everything we can to help alongside of that, for sure. Even tweeting out what we need to tweet, right,
I can't
Brian?
make any promises. I don't know. I'm not a social media butterfly.
You are the worst.
I just don't.
Mark and I are definitely on top of it, for sure.
But I will try, and that is a guarantee.
That is a guarantee that he will try.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you at least for trying.
Absolutely.
There you go.
I just don't. Twitter is scary. It's a scary place.
It can be. Once you get used to it, it tends to be a little bit better. I ran the Twitter for about a year straight, and I'm kind of coming back into running the Twitter now, and it can be a bit scary at first, but I think once you get a handle on how hashtags work and how mentioning other people works, like it really does get easier.
Awesome.
Definitely. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get into the meat of why you're here today? We're going to kind of look at some of the I guess from a more philosophical perspective in the series as a whole of Suikoden. I mean, you mentioned to us off the air that you wanted to kind of start out talking about the runes and what they mean to the series, because they obviously play a huge part. Not only just in battle, because that's where all your main powers come from, but like they are like a huge part of the story.
Yeah, they certainly are. And for those who may not have played the series, in the series, you can't really use magic as is. You have to equip a rune in order to use magic. This is the source of magical power within the Suikoden universe. And there are 27 true runes, so-called true runes, which are to a large extent sentient and indeed seemingly quite intelligent. And if we want to talk about Suikoden, it's very difficult to talk about it without talking about runes. When we talk about the true runes in Suikoden, they can be interpreted effectively as a metaphor for the type of military and social power that people in real life are always trying to achieve. To a certain extent, they play the same role as a high-level military technology. Only in the Suikoden universe, which takes place something in like a Renaissance era, they are effectively, they endow their wielder with a tremendous amount of military power. But one thing that becomes clear, particularly as you play through the games, but also even in the first game in Suikoden, you see that the power of the runes is not wielded without a tremendous cost. For example, in Suikoden 1, the Soul Eater rune, the true rune, gains its power as the main character's friends and family die. It literally eats the souls of those people in order to gain new magical spells and become more powerful.
Which I guess would be like a metaphor for people basically stepping over people, their family and stuff to gain power. It kind of makes sense if you think about it. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And the basic message here is that power comes at a price. And in Suikoden 1, this is spoken rather transparently to the player as they play, because obviously, Ted dies very early in the game. And that's how you acquire the rune. And then other people begin to die, like Odessa, and that's how you acquire some of the earlier spells that the rune can use. Mm-hmm. And in Suikoden 2, this is expanded upon rather greatly. What happens is you do not wield a true rune in and of itself, but rather that true rune, the rune of beginning, as it is called, splits itself into two different parts and has you and your best friend, Joey, wielding one part and the other part, respectively. Now, as we get into Suikoden lore and how things work, the origin myth of the Suikoden universe is that there was once, somewhere in the sky, a great sword and a bright shield. And the great sword once said that it could cut anything, and the shield said that it could defend against anything. And so they crashed against each other and both broke and scattered, and that's how the universe was created. The rune that you wield is called the Rune of Beginning, and it is meant to represent this very event in the world's, or in the universe's history. But as you play through the game, you begin to see that as you wield the Bright Shield rune, and your friend wields the Black Sword rune, you begin to see the two of you splitting apart and becoming onto the opposite sides of this growing conflict in the region. And the question then rises almost immediately. Who exactly is wielding whom in this situation? Is the Rune of Beginning actually just splitting itself in two and allowing two different people to wield it just so it can create some kind of, or have some kind of recreation of the world's origin story? And are you really wielding the rune, or is the rune wielding humanity as its puppets?
Well, as somebody who's played both games, I feel like that is pretty accurate. Almost everybody that wields a true rune is. I don't know if they're already predispositioned to that kind of like, the true rune of like obviously in the second one, Luca Blight wielded the beast rune.
Yeah.
And he acted like a beast.
They're following the rules.
They're following the rules of the rune rather than is that really their personality or is this the rune, doing this for them? So that's a good way to put it.
Exactly, and this comes down to Suikoden's basic concept and its basic philosophy. Last time I was here, I talked about the power of unity in Suikoden versus the kind of uber masculine power fantasy that is in most modern RPGs. And Suikoden, within its own design and writing philosophy, contains this very explicit statement that says, power will never bring you peace, and it will never, in the end, serve your purpose. In the end, power will wield you as opposed to you wielding the power itself. But at the same time, and this is actually one of the ways I think that Suikoden is so brilliant, the true rune at the beginning of Suikoden II was actually sealed and was not affecting, at least we can assume it was not affecting, the growing conflict between the nations of Highland and the nations of the Joustin city-states. So it in and of itself was not necessarily responsible for beginning the conflict, but may have just used the conflict itself in order to reenact the creation story of the Suikoden universe. And this is much the same with Suikoden 1 as well. The Soul Eater rune itself is not responsible for the conflict as a whole, while it did effectively devour the souls of the hero's loved ones. It was not responsible for actually killing them. Those are all in human hands, right. Responsibility for those actions. And this is something very much to think about. And one of the reasons that I love Suikoden so much is that it doesn't come to a discernible conclusion about this. It merely asks the question of its audience. What do you think is going on here? Who do you think is responsible? Do you feel that it is the rune itself? Or is it the actions of human beings that are creating these circumstances? Right. And it just asks you that question and leaves the answer to you. And this shows an utmost respect for the audience of Suikoden.
Yeah. What's the deal with, like, I never understood, like, what, there's true runes and then there's just runes. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, well, that's reasonably easy to explain.
Okay.
Is that true runes effectively have so-called children. Okay?
Gotcha.
And the more and more generations you are distant from a true rune, the less and less sentient each rune becomes.
Gotcha.
So, for example, if you haven't played Suikoden 5, there's the Sun rune, which is the center of the conflict, and its two close children, the Twilight rune and the Dusk rune.
Got it.
And then as you move further and further away, they become less and less sentient. So, for example, an average fire rune you find in the game probably isn't sentient,
right,
as far as we know.
And speaking of sentient, the Star Dragon sword, is that a rune? Is that a true rune?
Yes, it is.
Because it was Tommy's talking. It was kind of
yes.
It was kind of snide. And especially, especially in the second game, when you meet it, it's like,
yeah.
Okay, we'll do this again. We'll go. I like how it kind of broke the fourth wall and was like, okay, yeah, we'll go kill the Neck Lord again, idiot. You know what I mean? It was a pretty fun scene.
Yeah, exactly. And the true runes, we don't really know what they are or what they wish to accomplish. For example, the rune of beginning, its entire purpose in life may just be to recreate the origin story of the Suikoden universe. With the Star Dragon sword, which is actually the Night rune incarnate,
right.
It may actually have sealed itself into a sword form in order to prevent itself from having such a huge effect on humanity.
Understandable.
That tends to be my interpretation of it, because it knows it will be used. It knows it will be used to kill people. It knows it will be used for people to seek power. So thus it seals itself into a form of a sword, so it can more or less choose its own battles.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I with the 5 main games that are out right now, we still haven't seen all the 27 true runes yet, right?
No, we have not. We've seen, I believe the number is 18 of the 27. So there are still 9 that are unaccounted for. And a lot of them are accounted for only in kind of like the outlying lore of the Suikoden universe.
Right. So physically, we haven't actually like dealt with a lot of the true runes, just many of their offspring.
Yeah, exactly. And, some of the true runes are rather interesting and intelligent, like, for example, the Night Rune, which is the Star Dragon Sword.
Yeah.
Some of them are more elemental, like there is the true Fire Rune and the true Wind Rune, and they don't directly speak to their wielder. They just kind of communicate in ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe thinking that, which leads me to think that, it's difficult for them to even understand what human life is, and they can only kind of communicate in these vague ideas with their wielders.
Yeah. Well, just out of curiosity, have you yourself played any of the like offshoot games like the DS one or the PSP one?
Yes, I played the DS game. I have not played the PSP game. Unfortunately, the PSP remains untranslated into English, and there are no runes in the.
Oh, really?
In the DS game, yeah.
Wow. What about Tactics?
Tactics is
in Tactics is really almost like a direct sequel to Suikoden 4.
Okay, but that does have runes in it?
Yeah.
It does have runes in it, yes.
Okay, but there's no mention of any of the additional true runes in those games, right?
No, there is no mention. There are quite a large number of true runes in Suikoden 3. They introduce all of the elemental true runes, like the true rune of earth, the true rune of wind, fire, water, and lightning, all in that game. So you actually get quite a number there, and you also find out that Harmonia, which is one of the antagonists in Suikoden II, was founded by a man by the name of Hikuzak, who is the wielder of the True Circle rune. And the True Circle rune's dominion is over order, but also to a certain extent entropy. So imagine a world of completely made out of order, and it would be like everything is a statue, right?
Right.
Everything is made out of stone and cannot move because any kind of movement creates disorder in the universe, right?
That is interesting.
Yeah.
The other runes are almost like agents of chaos.
Yeah,
working
exactly.
against the circle rune, which
and
goes into...
And that's another thing we don't know about the series is, do the true runes seem to war against one another? Or is war the wrong word for it, right? Maybe they
seem to create balance almost between themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Very cool.
It's a cool perspective if somebody just played the games. Like, I like to dive into deep lore of games.
And it's really interesting that if the runes are all like entities of force and power, that without spoiling it, to get the perfect ending in Suikoden 2, you have to explicitly choose not to exert force.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yep.
And I'll be the first to admit, like when I first played Suikoden 1, when I bought it back in, when it came out, and I told that story, I could never forget it because the guy behind the counter was like, I was looking for a new RPG, and he said, "Well, have you tried Suikoden?" I'm like, "No, I haven't even heard of it." And I looked at it, and I mean, that box art on the first one, it was
awful.
It's atrocious.
It was.
And I was like, really?
When I first picked up the first Suikoden, I picked it up out of the bargain bin at my local game store. And I had just purchased my first PlayStation and was looking for another RPG besides Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy Tactics to play.
Yep.
And I looked at the box and I was like, oh, from Konami, the makers of Ninja Turtles and Castlevania. Oh, an RPG. Hey, this sounds good. And, took it home and was blown away by it.
See, and I had a good time, but I took it at face value when I first played it back then. I mean, granted, I was obviously a lot younger, but I mean, I didn't think about like the deeper meanings behind what the runes might represent, or the over to the tones of the story and that kind of stuff like that. I literally was just like, oh, cool, I got a new rune, that's new magic, or I got a new strong attack or something like that. And I thought it was a fun game, but I didn't really think about it. When I replayed it recently, when we did our first review, when you were on last time, I mean, it really, really, especially after meeting Mark, because he was such a big fan of the series, and he was always like, man, you need to play 2. And I was like, well, I don't have $1 million, so I can't really get it. But after doing that, I was like, I mean, I was absolutely blown away when I actually sat back, thought about it, and like you said, you know, the game makes you think, and I think that is just such a great thing for, I mean, not even necessarily a video game, a movie, a book, anything, a story to be able to do to make you reflect on what you just went through or what your characters are going through.
Yeah, exactly. In literature, we like to say that a great novel is a collaboration between the writer and the reader. And very much is the same with the Suikoden games, right? It is to a certain extent a collaboration between the game designers and the player. And it does not preach to you directly, but it allows you to draw your own conclusions about many of the philosophical points that it brings up. And you mentioned about the heroes of the series and the Tenkai stars, as they're called in game. None of them, throughout the entire course of the series, none of them actually seize power for themselves after the end of the war. And this is an important point as well when we talk about the design philosophy and the writing philosophy behind Suikoden. In most modern games, right, you know, if there is an end to the game, right, you become some kind of king or some kind of hero. Right. But in Suikoden 1, if you play through Suikoden 1 and then load your save file into Suikoden 2, you'll find that the hero from Suikoden 1 rejected the throne and just spends his time in this small village fishing. That's all he does. And he has rejected the power that was handed to him. And indeed, we could consider his right after being the hero of an entire war in Suikoden 1. And it's important to note that the reason that he does that is because he inherently mistrusts the power that these runes give him. And he inherently mistrusts power in and of itself. And, of course, this feeds back into the general philosophy of not being about power, but being more about unity in the Suikoden series. And the exact same thing with Suikoden 2. In order to get the best ending, you have to leave the throne behind. You have to run away, effectively, and reject the power that is offered to you. Because as Leknot says in Suikoden 2, and this is a direct quote, she says, "Power will not bring you peace." And that, in a nutshell, is the Suikoden games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their philosophy is that while power can be used as a stopgap measure, almost like a tourniquet, to stop the bleeding and to stop the violence, it will never truly bring you peace, and it will never truly bring you happiness. And this is one of the things that I love about the games, is because they are not power fantasies. They are the opposite of a power fantasy, in a sense.
Correct. I agree. I took the throne. I was the leader of. I ended up being the reluctant leader of Atmanation.
Yeah.
Oops. But that's just me. So.
He goes into this whole spiel about how, like, you know, it shows that these people have such great character that they're willing to put, you know, everything else above themselves, and it's because they don't want to be corrupted by this power. Oh, not me. I was the king.
Well, they asked me to, and they were like, "You have to be the leader of this new nation. We're calling it Atmanation." And I'm like, "All right, I'll do it." And what was I? What's Ryu's age? Like 14, 15 in the game? So yeah, teenage.
16.
Yeah, 16. Teenage dynasty. What?
It makes you. I mean, it speaks volumes about, especially the ones who have had the true runes for a long time. Like I know Tim is in the fourth game as well, which I plan on playing soon. But knowing how old he is and how long he had that rune, to know that it didn't ever grab a hold of it, you know, I mean, because you meet him in the first game and he seems like just this sweet, innocent little kid. But he's actually, there's so much more to him, and how long he's been around and how long he's had to deal with something that normal people shouldn't have to deal with. You know, it's just, it speaks volumes about how strong these people are.
Yeah, he's more than 200 years old in the first game. And it really does show that he, too, understood the concept that, you know, the central concept of the series is that power will never bring you peace. And so he chose to merely reject that power up until it was absolutely necessary to save his life and the life of his friends. So,
definitely. Okay. Well, so I mean, I assume that's kind of like I mean, the other part that we were going to talk about was what qualifies the 108 Stars of Destiny to be heroes, and I mean, that's pretty much exactly it. You know, like,
yeah.
they're not the ones.
What qualifies you to wield a true rune is the fact that you mistrust the true rune from the very beginning, right? Because if you are like the antagonist from Suikoden II, Luca Blight, and you only wish for power, right, you will end up creating disaster upon disaster upon disaster, right, if you gain that much power. But if you, to a certain extent, reject power, then, and you understand that it will never bring you peace, then that is what qualifies you to be a hero of the Suikoden series.
I feel like the Beast rune, though, in the game was really like kind of obviously feeding off of, like, he fed an entire village to it. So,
yeah,
kind of fed off of Luca's inherent character. Like, he's going to feed me what I need to be fed as I'm the Beast rune. That's what I do. I do like all the metaphors in the game, though. All the runes are like unapologetically what they are. So, well, that's what I am. It's the old saying, a frog rides a scorpion across the river, and the scorpion stings the frog and kills it, and frog asks why he did it, because I'm a scorpion. There's a snake one too, kind of like the beast rune. That's what I do. I am a beast. I eat people. I'm not going to apologize for that, and I like that.
Yeah, and it's difficult to tell exactly what these runes' intentions are, or if they even have intentions, for the most part. I mean, because mostly they don't communicate with people, except for, of course, the Star Dragon Sword.
Yeah, and he's sarcastic.
Yeah, he's just kind of a bastard about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Those are some of my favorite scenes, though, in the whole entire series. I mean, between the Star Dragon Sword and Victor.
And Victor, just,
oh my god, that's hysterical.
I mean, it was pretty funny in the first game, but when he started like just making fun of, like, were we doing this again? Really? Are we gonna go do this again?
They're like an old married couple.
Correct. Like, it was I was laughing because I'm like, that's a really cool scene, because we had to go. Obviously we had to get it's the same. We're playing out the same Destiny as in the first game, where we have to go get the Star Dragon Sword to defeat the Neck Lord. And so I'm thinking like, oh, I'm doing this again. Okay, and then the sword even acknowledges it, like, oh, we're doing this again. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, exactly. And you get the feeling, I mean, especially because you fight the Star Dragon Sword as a boss in the second game, that he's actually much, much more powerful than he lets on as just being a sword.
Oh, yeah.
But he is consciously restraining himself in order to, for some reason, not to affect the human world as much as possible.
Yep.
Definitely.
And this is really strange, because the Beast rune doesn't seem to have any problem with affecting the human world at all.
No, yeah.
An entire city gets fed to it, and it doesn't seem to care.
Correct.
And the rune of beginning splits itself into two and then wars against itself in a way, right?
Yeah, it's cool. The whole metagame behind the game. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, but as I said before, then again, none of these runes really started the conflict in which they were used. So is it human beings that are the central core of the problem, or is it the runes that are the central core of the problem? And you are free to decide whatever you want about that question.
And there you have it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We do have a couple of quick questions that we wanted to ask you on top of, like, because I mean that's just awesome info, phenomenal, like, deep talk. I love being able to look into a game like that, and when you play a game and you take it for face value, it could be fun, but when you actually sit back and you're able to go into actual discussion and think about how it affects you, how it affects these characters, and be like, well, this is my take on it, and this is how I felt it happened, and somebody else comes over and says, like, well, I feel it's this way. Mm-hmm. That's the best. Like,
I had some cons when we recommended it, but I think we hit on the most, like, the biggest pro of the Suikoden series that I've played thus far, and it's subtle writing. A lot of JRPGs have a lot of trouble with subtle writing. It's usually just whack in your face. There's not any
the world's going to blow up or something like that.
Yeah, there's never any never any like nuance to a lot of JRPG games. It's always just like, here's all this, right in your face. But Suikoden has really good subtle, like, just this whole discussion makes me want to play the third one, like, right away to explore more true runes. I
keep telling him that the third one's amazing, but he's gonna have to like take a breather before he does it because
Yeah.
it's a long game.
But the
yeah.
discussion stoked the fire that I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's got a lot of deep meaning. I think that's the most important.
And the Trinity Sight system just really brings it home. I loved that, being able to.
Yep.
I remember playing through, the first part of Chris's story, and then being like, man, these village people, what is wrong with them? Seriously. And then you play as Hugo, and it's like, oh, what's wrong with those knights, man? Seriously, what's up? Come on, And I mean, just being able to see both sides of the same conflict, knowing that there's never any real clear right and wrong. It's always just from this person's point of view. I think that's one of the brilliant things about the third game, and I think you're really gonna like it, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I said, we have two things we wanted to ask real quick. One, Brian seems to think there's too many characters. He is convinced that 108 is just way too much, and he makes Mark lose sleep over it at night.
Yep.
He's cried his eyes out. But I from what I understand and from what you've told me, there is a reason why there is 108 stars in there, and I think Mark's got some notes that he took. I'll let him read those, and if you've got something you want to add to it on top of that.
Ryan has way more information about it than I do. I just did some quick research and saw that the games are based off the water margin. That's one of the translations of the title of the Chinese novel. There's 108 outlaws who band together. Some of them are scholars. Some of them are fishermen. Some of them are warriors and drill instructors.
Some of them are elevator men.
Some of them are, I don't know. And that
They didn't have elevators in classical China.
This is true.
Nor did they have runes, but that's beside the point.
unfortunately. Right. Or fortunately, maybe.
Yes. Well, no, Brian's opinion is actually quite valid.
Don't
Originally-
say that. Oh, jeez.
No. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying his opinion is valid, right? I disagree, but let's just talk about this for a sec. The original novel is called Shi Huizhang in Chinese, and it literally translates as water margin. Originally, the original author of the novel did not finish it before he unfortunately passed away, and the novel was taken up by his protege. Originally, there were only supposed to be 36 stars of destiny. And his protege, who later went on to write Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is what Dynasty Warriors, for example, is based on, he decided to up that to 108 stars of destiny in total. And in the game, though, I think that this is actually, to a certain extent, a perfect number, even if it is very difficult to write and very difficult to design the game because there are just so many characters you can use in battle and so many characters to introduce. This is actually quite good because it allows you, I think I talked about this the first time I was here, but it allows you to kind of get out there with certain characters and make them very different and very unique as opposed to very generic, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because the more and more you focus on a single central hero, the more and more generic that hero tends to become, right? As opposed to something where if you have 108 characters, well, there's something there for everyone. It's like having 108 flavors of ice cream, right? There's going to be something there for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I totally get that. I'd say 108's too many just to rile Mark up, but I think it's really 108's really not necessary, which goes to the point of you can make it your own game. If you don't need to collect all 108 to enjoy the game and its story. Now, if they forced you to, I might have a problem with that, but they don't. You can have I think I got maybe 70 on both games, and exactly. It didn't really diminish the story at all. So my argument's always been that 108 is just not necessary. But sure. I guess you could say that adding 108 characters is just extra flavor to it. So
JJ always compares it to Pokemon, and you don't have to get all of the Pokemon, but you want to.
Yeah.
It feels good to catch each new one.
I didn't want to, and I never want to.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Pokemon do not make for very interesting characters.
Correct.
That tends to be my problem with the games.
JJ said the same thing. Mark, don't use Pokemon as an example.
Yeah. It's interesting, too. You brought up the original novel. Some English translations of the original novel of Shi Huizhang they changed the title of the novel from Water Margin, and they changed the title to all men are brothers. And this, I'm not usually a fan of, changing the title willy-nilly like that, but it does just go to show how in the original novel, the concept of unity, the concept that all men are brothers, how deeply it runs through the entire novel and indeed through the entire game series based on that novel. And I think that by having 108 Stars of Destiny, you really can show that all men are indeed brothers, because you have people from so many different walks of life with so many different expertises.
Yeah, not even all human, like a rat king.
I think that's a great point. Not just powerful people either.
Yeah, exactly. In the first game, you get Sarah, who is only a washerwoman.
Yeah.
Right? That's all she does is she washes the clothes. But it's actually kind of funny, too, if you read your history. In European warfare, the only prisoners, when you took prisoners, the only prisoners that were released without harm and without any kind of ransom were the washerwomen.
Really?
Literally. Like throughout the Crusades, throughout everything, the first thing they would do is they would release the washerwomen back to the other side, because they played such an important role in the war.
I
Wow.
never knew that.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
You wouldn't know that, and you wouldn't think about that if you just watched Hollywood movies about warfare, right?
It's not glamorous, right?
But if you know your history, that becomes apparent and kind of obvious too, because they really do have an important role now, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that just goes to show how well educated Yoshitaka Murayama is.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, my big thing as far as having 108 characters in there, my favorite part was always you recruit somebody new, you get the little noise that plays, little sound bite, and then your character does a little spin, and then then you go back to your castle and you see what they're bringing to the table. You see maybe like a new addition, or you see a new shop that's opened up, or anything in there.
Yeah.
Something you've unlocked, something you've done. It's like getting an achievement.
Right.
Exactly.
And just absolutely, like, you're building this community, and I just think that's so cool. I mean, I'm not saying we need more. I'm not saying there should be less, but the fact that there are so many just makes it really makes you sit back and be like, oh my gosh, I can improve my castle that much.
It's like
That's
the
insane.
Baskin and Robbins of video games. There's flavor for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, but in the modern day, right, if you said that you wanted to make a character in your game who was just a washerwoman, who just washed clothes all day, you would be rejected. You'd be laughed out. The design document would be thrown out and shredded,
Yeah.
But that's the great thing about Suikoden, is that it takes the time to show those kinds of characters.
And now, I said on the show previous that while the first game had a pretty tough time because I really don't like arbitrarily collecting characters I know nothing about. It just doesn't feel. All it literally feels like is, okay, I got a noise, and he's now walking around in my castle. I don't really know him. The second game, and I'm assuming as the technology gets better, the games improve on that. But I found in the second game there were a lot more flavor to collecting the characters rather than just, I talked to him. Will you join my army? Yes. Okay. Dance, and they're in the castle. It was a much more personal experience to recruiting rather than just like the elf at the bridge in the first game who's like, well, you got to come back when you're stronger.
Level 40.
Well, level 40. And it's like, wait, I don't understand. Just join my army. Like, why can't you just join my army now? Like, so the second game improved on it. So I even said, the second game did a way better job of not making the 108 seem unnecessary. And you said, Ryan, that it's probably pretty tough to write for 108 characters.
It is very difficult.
Which has always been my argument with Mark, is that it'll dilute the narrative if they write for all these characters. So, that's why I didn't ever find 108 being necessary. However,
But Suikoden 2, case in point, 108 characters, and it doesn't feel like it has a diluted story.
well, I didn't collect all 108, but I thought it did a lot better of a job of focusing the story within the character collection. So like I said, number 2 was much improved.
Cool.
Yeah, I feel that it was too. And one of the great things that I love about 2 is that the characters will actually not just stand in one place in your castle, but they'll move around. Sometimes they're in the pub.
Yeah, it was much more lively.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they're at the stage, sometimes they're hanging out in the yard during the day, and it feels alive, you know what I mean?
I definitely appreciated that improvement.
Yeah, one thing you can look forward to when you play Suikoden 3 is the theater minigame. Literally, it's a mini game inside your castle where you can put on plays using the Stars of Destiny.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
I assure you, it is the greatest mini game in all of RPG history. It is hilarious to cast a mother and son as Romeo and Juliet, and you will get booed off the stage. It is hilarious.
That's actually
amazing.
intriguing. Actually awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. You will love it. You will appreciate having 108 characters at that point.
Interesting.
Three is my favorite in this series. Like I absolutely love 2, but 3
Yep.
was actually the first one that I played to completion. And the Trinity Sight System, like I mentioned before, and then the castle, the way it was done, and everything you could do, it was like a toy. I mean, there was so much you can do in it. It was unbelievable. I even went so far as to level up all the little dogs that you can get that don't even count as stars of Destiny.
Yeah.
Because I loved it so much.
One of the great things about 3.2 was its timing as well. It was released in 2002, less than a year after the unfortunate events of September 11th, 2001. And its narrative really did indeed run counter to the narrative that was prevalent at the time, that this was our military actions were effectively ultimate evil versus ultimate good. And I think that to a certain extent, Suikoden 3 represented a counter narrative to a lot of what was going on at the time.
I could see that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so the one last question that we had to ask, Mark, I hadn't even thought about this. Mark brought it up about maybe 20 minutes before we started recording or so.
Yep.
I'm not going to ask you to actually do it, but I just want to know if you can, just because I know that if you could do it, it would take a while to actually run through them all. But are you able to name all 108 Stars of Destiny off the top of your head from 2?
Gosh, I could probably do 5, but not 2, because I actually wrote a walkthrough on GameFAQs for 5.
Wow,
but
still.
not 2 off the top of my head.
Still, I mean that's still 108 names from one
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show how much I love the series, and I never get tired of replaying them. Actually, to prepare for this, I actually went back and I started replaying Suikoden II, and gosh, man, it hasn't lost its edge at all. It's aged incredibly well.
I know. Just talking
gotta
about it
say.
now, I want to go back and
Yeah.
play it again.
Exactly. Especially the beginning of the game too is just so well crafted.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing that I did want to talk about too is the beginning of most RPGs nowadays. In Suikoden 2, you press start, you enter the name of the character, and then boom, within 45 seconds, you are playing the game.
Yeah.
I recently tried to play Final Lightning Returns, and it literally took 7 minutes from the start to the time when I made the first decision of the entire game. Sid Meier, the great, brilliant game designer Sid Meier, who did Civilization and all that, and Pirates,
Yeah.
he once famously said that a great game is a series of interesting decisions by the player. And that's what gaming is. It is an interactive medium where the player has to make decisions. In Suikoden 2, within 45 seconds, you make your first decision, and then you start exploring the world. You can explore this army camp organically and just talk to people and see what's going
Yep.
on. With Lightning Returns, I couldn't understand what was going on throughout the entire opening sequence. And then I got to make my first insipid decision that I didn't really care about. But no, and before it seems like I'm picking on JRPGs, Skyrim was exactly the same way. Skyrim was 8 minutes and 30 seconds before you got to make your first decision in the game, not counting character creation.
Oh, you're not wrong about Lightning Returns. I beat the game and I still have no idea what it was about at all. Honestly, I just went through the motions, did the battle mechanics, and finished it. And I thought the ending was pretty, but I really,
pretty,
I have no idea what the story was about. I even said it on the show. I was like, I finished Lightning Returns and it was interesting. The story was garbage, but it looked really good.
If you want a game that really takes the controller out of your hand, Metal Gear Solid 4, I recommend.
That's true. It does, really.
For like an
Actually,
hour.
it's funny. I have my degree in literature, and yes, I have read Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce. and I still have no idea what's going on in the Final Fantasy 13 series. I can make sense of Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, but I cannot make sense of Final Fantasy 13.
It's crazy.
So it is either incredible genius beyond genius, or it is just utter trash.
I think it's too many.
I decide to go with utter trash.
Yeah, I think it's too many metaphorical analogies on top of each other that just get diluted after a while. Like, you can't just keep stacking them.
And, you know, Skyrim was to a certain extent the same way. Don't get me wrong, I actually really liked Skyrim. I thought it was a fun game. But at the same time, its entire central story about the war between, you know, people who want to wipe out religious freedom and people who are kind of racist jerks, right? Like, why would I care about choosing sides between that? And so I just ended up going off and being a thief in Skyrim.
Exactly.
Because I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less about, you know, the lesser of two evils, you know?
Right.
True
And
enough.
it tries to do the same thing as Suikoden and have a nuanced perspective about there being no such thing as ultimate good or ultimate evil, but it just falls flat on its face because they're both just kind of jerks and you don't care.
No.
True enough. Okay, well, so that's probably about as much time as we've got today. I want to say, before we say our goodbyes and stuff, I want to make a promise.
Okay.
Because you gave me crap about this earlier and have given me crap about it already. I promise, like, we would, first of all, we'd love to have you come back again, like probably when we do 3 and maybe go into a little bit more depth, especially into that game, because that's, again, my favorite.
Yeah, for all the downloads you get, it'll be a good idea.
All right, there you go. I promise the next time that you are back, I will have played and beaten Silent Hill 2.
Good.
I'm making
Excellent.
a vow.
You better play
Yeah.
that with somebody in the room and the lights on. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, I got an idea. JJ and I will watch
Shanna
my
play it.
fiance play Silent Hill 2.
They probably will.
That's brilliant. You know, I know that my Konami fanboy stripes are starting to show here, but Silent Hill 2 is really the only game, in my opinion, that even comes close to the same ballpark as Suikoden in terms of craft of its story. It really is an amazing, amazing game. And as fans of game storytelling as you guys are, I can't recommend it highly enough.
All right, I promise. I will have it beaten by then, and if not, I will let Brian and Mark do an episode without me.
That sounds terrifying. That's
You know-
punishment for us.
Yeah, you don't. What? That.
I'll do all the notes and stuff. You just have
Okay.
to talk. Yeah. See, I'll still do all the work. Jeez. Okay, well, with that, Ryan, can't thank you enough for being here, man. It's always a pleasure, and man, every time we talk to you, my brain just hurts because it's overloaded with all this info.
Well, hey, don't feel bad. I went to college for this kind of stuff. Actually, one of the reasons I studied medieval literature and literary theory in college is because of my love of Suikoden. So don't feel bad. It's just, you know, it's what I've trained to do.
Oh, I don't feel bad at all. It's it's super interesting. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is like I said, just talking about this makes me want to, like, I'm going to kick these guys out when they leave, and I'm going to go play Suikoden 2. So, I mean, like, it's just, I mean, just getting these new perspectives on a series that I already love. I mean, what better thing is there in gaming than that, you know? Because I'm not somebody who goes back and replays games once I've beaten them.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, with this gives me reasons to go back and experience, because I can...
You have a new perspective.
Correct, yeah, absolutely. And that's
Hey, well,
awesome.
talking about Suikoden is one of my favorite things in the world. I can do it all day long, every day.
Hey.
So don't feel bad about inviting me back either. So
Heck yeah.
All
right,
right.
man. Well, again, thank you so much, and be sure to keep us updated with anything going on with the SRM. We will 100% back you guys and mention it on the show for sure. So,
Yep.
hey, great. Well, thanks for having me back, guys.
and we're back with just the three of us here.
Hi, I'm number 2.
You certainly are.
And I'm number 1.5.
Wait.
Mark is full of number 2.
Oh.
All right. So, man, that guy is just so awesome to talk to. Like, he literally has like an answer for everything. He can
Definitely.
compare it to something that's going to make it sound super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like he really the deeper meaning of the games. Really.
Exactly. Like the runes, I hadn't thought too deeply about it. You think about it some in 3, but looking back now, I'm glad that I'm just starting 2 again.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pay attention and really try to digest what I'm seeing.
And more than anything, the coolest thing about Ryan is his name is almost perfect. If it just had a B on it,
Oh.
and then you take the Y and you add an I, then it's like literally.
No.
He's got the perfect name and everything.
Are we done?
Wow.
I like how you guys thought I was going somewhere with that, and then I just derailed it.
Oh no, we had no doubt that you were going absolutely nowhere with that.
Is that a forced? Is he forcing
no,
himself
that's
to
my
laugh?
like.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, that is pretty much the time we have for today. Next episode, we'll be back to our top fives and stuff.
Our 52s.
And what?
It'll be episode 52.
It will be 52. Yes, absolutely. Episode 52.
Man, my my potion that I'm making with my occult black arts, using the time of the people who listen, it's becoming very potent.
What are you talking about?
This is a callback to a joke I made last episode, but it's really not very.
Oh, it's
not a
something you
good-
said?
Yeah.
No wonder I didn't remember.
See?
Okay. So, I said I love you. What did you
Oh.
hear? You're my favorite, Mark. You're my favorite.
Thank you.
All right. With that, and oh, by the way, if you haven't already, I think it goes without saying, but go check out the Suikoden Revival movement on Facebook.
Definitely.
Facebook.com/Suikoden Revival.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome. What they're doing is awesome. And if you haven't played a Suikoden game and listening to us talk about Suikoden 2 and the series as a whole with Ryan, what's wrong with you, man? Like, come on.
Yeah, Brian.
Get with it.
What was wrong with you?
Played.
What
He's in.
what was wrong with you?
What was wrong with me? The thing that was wrong with me was I was busy playing Mass
Final
Effect.
Fantasy very slowly.
No, Mass Effect, which well, obviously, come on, Mass Effect.
Yeah, that's fair. Aspect's pretty good.
It's pretty good. All right. With that, this is the Frozen North signing off. My name is JJ, and thank you very much for listening.
My name is Mark. Thank you some more. Also,
And my name is Brian, and that rhymes with Ryan.
yeah.
You ain't lying.
Or am I dying?
I hope not.
I'm not.
Good.
Something with flying in it.
Yes. All right. With that, thank you again. And as always, keep on gaming.
Our theme song was made available through the Creative Commons Attribution license by Ziphoid. The song title is Radical Fanfare.